Ooh, the 16-time Nature Boy champion Ric Flair is back. He is running his mouth. It is weird because he's making sense at the start of a sentence, but by the end of the sentence, he is making no sense in typical Ric Flair fashion. So yeah, guys, welcome back to Fog Wrestling, and Ric Flair believes, this is like pot calling the kettle black here, but Ric Flair believes that women shouldn't bleed, that they should not bleed in professional wrestling. This is coming from the guy that would literally bleed if you blew on his forehead. You could poke his forehead. If you gave the finger poke of doom to Ric Flair's forehead, there'd be about 5 litres of blood on the mat, man. It is that simple. I don't know what happened to Ric Flair's forehead. I guess it was just like so much blading over the years that the skin on his forehead never properly healed and it just got so soft. But it is kind of insane how easily Ric Flair just bleeds, especially like towards the end of his career. Like, you could not see Ric Flair have a match without bleeding. It was crazy. Even matches where he didn't want to bleed, it was like any sort of light contact to his forehead would just cause him to be like busted open, and it was strange. It was really, really strange. But anyway, Ric Flair again was on his podcast To Be the Man, and he was asked about women bleeding in wrestling, and Ric said the following, and I quote, "I don't like it. I mean, I guess everybody's got their own opinion, but I certainly wouldn't want to see Charlotte bleeding." End of quote. So Ric here initially saying that he doesn't like it, but he doesn't mind because everybody has their own opinions, everybody has their own preferences in wrestling. Some people might want to see the women bleeding, but he doesn't, and he wouldn't like to see Charlotte bleeding. So, interesting take there for Flair. I'm pretty sure with those opinions he'd be accused of being a sexist in 2023. How dare you not want the women bleeding, but you're okay with the men doing it. And speaking of men doing it, Ric Flair then went on to follow up, and he said, quote, "I think there should be more with the guys. No matter how you look at it, how do you put 2 people in a cage match? 10 years ago, every time we hit the cage, we're bleeding. Now, nothing happens. That's the one thing I don't like. I don't like the girls in a cage match for sure, because I think it limits their ability, their athleticism, and their ability to do athletic things like off the top rope and that." End of quote. So, Ric Flair does make a good point at the start with the guys. It is dumb. You have steel cage matches, you have Hell in a Cell matches, you have matches with guys taking shots to the head or being thrown head first into objects, and nothing happens. There's no blood, there's no nothing. They literally just get hit in the head and they're absolutely fine. So yeah, from that standpoint, I totally agree with Ric Flair. It does look dumb, and in my opinion, you can't really have steel cage matches without blood. If you have a steel cage match without blood, then it's just not realistic. It looks dumb. It looks stupid. It looks fake. But he then goes on to say about how he doesn't want to see women in steel cage matches, and I can agree with that. Yeah, we get it. Lita and Trish had one, but on the most part, I certainly could go without seeing women in these gimmick matches. I do not mind the odd one, but I hate how the women need to have a Royal Rumble because the men have one. I hate how the women need to have a chamber match because the men have one. Like I said, if there's a massive feud in the women's division, then I don't mind them having the odd hardcore match or the odd steel cage match, but I hate the fact that they have to get the same gimmick matches as the men get because they're pushing this fake equality down our throat. In my opinion, that sucks. But I didn't like how Ric Flair basically used an excuse here for not wanting to see women in gimmick matches. So he says that the reason he doesn't want to see women in gimmick matches is because he thinks it limits their ability and their athleticism. But for me, that's bullshit. How can he say that? If it limits their ability and their athleticism, then surely it limits the men's ability more because the men have more ability. So if the women being in a steel cage match limits their ability, then why doesn't the men being in a steel cage match limit their ability when the men are a lot more athletic and have a lot more ability than the women in wrestling? I thought that was very strange for Ric Flair. I feel like he wants to just be honest, but he feels like he can't, so therefore he's having to try and spin it in a way that... Why not just come out and say it, though? Why not just come out and say, look, I'm old school, I don't want to see women bleeding, and I don't want to see women in steel cage matches. If he said that, then who cares? I mean, it's not the worst thing Ric Flair's done or said. I highly doubt he's going to get cancelled for his controversial opinions, but to suggest that the reason he doesn't want to see women in a steel cage match is because it would affect their ability and it would limit their ability to do certain moves. I mean, so isn't that the same for the men? Doesn't a steel cage match limit the men's ability to do certain moves? Again, I thought that was really weird with Ric Flair. And normally he just comes out and says how he feels. So I don't know, maybe he legit feels that way, but in my opinion that is very, very strange. Anyway guys, let me know what you think down below. Do you like to see women bleeding in wrestling? I personally aren't a huge fan of it. I could get behind it in certain matches, but it just doesn't need to happen all the time. It doesn't need to happen for the sake of it. Even with the guys, you know, blood I think should be warranted. You know, like steel cage matches should be warranted. It just shouldn't be something that happens just for a bit of fun or for the sake of it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I will catch you in the next video. Ric Flair doesn't want to see any more bleeding from the women unless it's that time of the month, I guess. Till next time though. Woo!